I get lots of questions like this. They're aerial perspective questions. It says, I once read or heard that foliage in the distance takes on a grayer hue. This person wants to know, how do you do that? Do you change the distant foliage or change the hue or just lessen the contrast of the greens? That's a really good question. There are lots of things that happen in the distance. The things do change as they move in the distance. And the change is because of the particles, atmospheric particles. But they may not always turn blue. They may turn a little bit more neutral. It depends on what's going on. Are you in, what time of day is it? What's the weather like? Is there a sunset? Is there a cloudy sky? Is it overcast sky, blue sky? All those kinds of things. So the best way to handle that is to pay attention to the surroundings. But look, there's some things that you can always count on. Now, we all know that as things move into the distance, we see them smaller. So that's kind of a given. That's not what that's not what the subscriber was asking. This person wanted to know how to do that. Well, one thing that you can count on is that the value of contrast is going to change. The value of contrast is going to get closer. Now, I've got two pictures here that show you vistas. We're looking into the distance in both of them, and you see it's two different kinds of distance. Here, you don't really see the distant mountains getting bluer, more or less, but what you do see is you see the value of contrast getting closer. Now, what I mean by, you see the same thing here. Now, these do get bluer as they move in the distance, and a lot of times images do get bluer as they move into the distance. But the thing that really makes it work is if you look for the value of contrast, and that's what I want to show you here. Just give you just a brief little, sort of a cartoonish demonstration to show you what I'm talking about. All right, what do I mean by value of contrast? Let's take a look at this one. The way the light's shining here, this side of these trees are more or less in shadow. So you can see the cast shadow right here. So that means the light is coming from pointing at the other side of the tree. Well, regardless of that, whatever would be going on in here up close to us is going to have the sharpest contrast, the sharpest value of contrast. Unless there's fog. There's always unlesses. Unless there's fog, unless there's rain, unless. But under normal conditions. So let's just say that under normal lighting conditions, even in the late afternoon or the early morning, the things that are closest to us are going to have a closer contrast. So we're going to be able to see more of their actual hues. So this tree, for example, we see the shadow side of that tree. So I'm just going to pull a shadow side of a dark yellow green I have here. I'm going to throw it a little bit of the transparent oxide red into it to kind of decrease that intensity, and just a little bit blue because it is that deep shadow side. Now, what we see there, I'll just go right here. What we see there is something like this, where we have a very dark against, let's see, let's pull some of those up right here a little bit, a very dark against, let's put it right here, what would be a very light light. What we see of the tree itself is very dark. What we see of its surroundings is very light. So there's, I'm going to rinse this brush out. I was trying to pull that off without rinsing the brush out, which I'm often tempted to do. Now I'm going into the very light. Here, of course, that's been photoshopped to something. We wouldn't normally see it that way. But this is the principle of value. And right here is the very light. That's its surroundings. This is the strongest contrast. This tree against those surroundings is the strongest value contrast. Now, look in the way distance there. I'm going to change to a smaller brush. Look at, well, one thing, I've got a little ego problem here with this tree. It's kind of, obliterated its shape when I put in that, there we go, that's a little bit better. Now look in the way distance. In the way distance in that photograph, you see that contrast much closer. This is a strong value contrast within the darkest area available to us of paint, within the lighter area of within the lightest area available to us. But when we look way back here, and we go further we go back, we'll see that contrast get more narrow, closer together. What that usually means is the darks will lighten up. Sometimes the lights will get a little darker, but it usually means the darks will lighten up. So what I want to do here, and let's look also what else is happening there. In this one, those darks, that dark is getting a little bluer. It's getting more neutral. If we look down here, well, here we've just got the mountains contrast, but we see that it's getting a little bit more neutral. The dark's getting a little bit more neutral. So always look for as the dark goes into the distance, as the shape goes into the distance, is it getting more? Is it getting bluer? Is it getting more neutral? So I'm making it more neutral. I'm making it a little bit bluer. And how dark do I know to make it? Well, that comes with observation. Like I keep teaching in these quick tips. There's nothing like observation. So what I can do, and I know that it is, if I'm going with this tree right here, and I know that it's located about right here. So I probably should use a smaller brush. Let's see if I can pull that off with this brush. Alright, so here is my mixture. It's a little bit bluer. And let's see now. Let's see, is that, yeah. There we go. That is a middle value. Oh, that's a middle value. Get it a little bit bluer. A middle value, and the shape is not going to be as distinct. So in the distance, you see that shape is not going to be as distinct. Well, I didn't make it as distinct, didn't it? But we see that in the middle distance. I'll get rid of that distinction. That darker value gets much lighter, much cooler. Now what's happening to the value around it? That's the question. A value around it could also include, so we take the dark value. If we had seen the sun on this side and we had seen light on the tree itself, the same principle would apply. But a lot of times what we're looking at is what happens to be the lightest light or the lightest value we see in front, and then compare that with the lightest value we see in the distance. And as I go in the distance, that you can see that color, what's happened there, the value remains pretty much the same, but it's way less intense. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to go to the same color. It's this one right here, same color, and I'm going to reduce its intensity. First of all, I'm going to cool it. It seems to me to be a little bit cooler, so I'll reach over to a little bit of blue and white. That's my value line right here. And I'm going to reach in to a little bit of transparent oxide red. I'm making that less intense so that the surrounding area, see, now we can see the value contrast. I'll have to go back in and reshape that tree. And I will simply just do that right in here. Just reshape right in here so that you can actually see. Now, and I also want to get rid of some of those sharp edges, because we didn't see that in the distance either. But the main thing that you see, happening that causes you to see those things in distance is that contrast. The value contrast gets closer. Other things happen. The intensity might change, the hue might change, but it's the value contrast and those diffused edges that are going to make you actually see that in the distance. So I hope you can see the difference now. This is close value contrast. These values, I'll put my value scale up here and show you. Right here's my value scale. Now you can see this. Well, this value, this dark falls about right here. This light falls about right there. You see the distance between here and here. That is a strong major value contrast. Now, look at this one in the very distance. You see how this value will fall about right here, and then of course this value stays about right. That pulls the contrast much closer. So the closer those values are together, regardless of where they are in the value range, the closer they are together, the less the contrast is. The further they are apart, the stronger the contrast. So you're going to see the ones in the distance going to be very, very close. The ones that are close up to us are going to be very, very strong. So we have two series of lessons. Let's say 8 lessons actually that deal with creating distance. Our most recent one is the series 39 called Creating Distance. That's on DianeMize.com, where we have all of our full-length tutorials. That's where you get the real teaching. So you might go check those out. And in one of our really early lessons that we published in, 3 years ago, I think it was now, series 5, called Creating Aerial Perspective. And this is aerial perspective that we're talking about. So you might check those out, and then if you have a suggestion for a quick tip, drop us a comment right down here, and we'll put it on our schedule. And there's your quick tip.